Hey you have played Flappy Bird before, right? Or at least you know what the game is. But what you're currently looking at is not Flappy Bird. This is Flappy Bird plus plus. Flappy Bird is a simple game with just one control, the tap. You tap, gain some height, cross some pipes, and get points. So I thought it would be easy to build. Why am I building this again? Hi, I'm trying to learn Python to get hired as a software engineer, and I felt the best way to learn Python would be by building a game. So I decided to build Flappy Bird in Python. But, and this is a big but, I don't know how to build a game, and I don't know Python either. Now that I said it out loud, I realize that this is going to be quite the challenge. But don't worry, here is the plan. Let's jump into the first step. Step 1. We'll learn some Python. It's just the basics, so it's going to be quite small. Every programming language is essentially the same. There are a few building blocks you'll need to learn, then you can build pretty much whatever you want and learn more specific things to the programming language as you go. Here's what I think we need to learn to get started. We need variables to store information. This is not C++. Operators to manipulate that information. Control statements like if-else or for loops to control the flow of the program. Arrays so that we don't create a lot of variables with the same name to store similar data. Don't do this, guys. This is pretty bad. And finally, we need functions so that we can group statements to perform a specific task. Look at this example that I've created. I've extracted a lot of functionality and put it into its own function. It makes things a lot easier to understand and test.
But classes are important as
Do you guys hear something? So, as I was saying, you can learn the rest as you progress and build more advanced stuff. With that part out of the way, now we are in step 2. It's time to build Flappy Bird. I did some research and figured out that Pygame is a pretty popular Python library to build games. So I quickly set up Pygame with Poetry. Oh, you don't know what Poetry is? It is a simple tool that is used to manage projects.
Shut up, nerd.
I mean, I could have just used pip with requirements.txt for dependencies, but why not?
Should have just used pip.
Now I think I've set it up properly. It's time to test. Getting started, right off the bat, I decided to change the FPS to 144 because we are real gamers here. I ran the basic Pygame example and got a purple screen. If I can do this, I'm pretty sure I can build any game I want. Next step is to get something on the screen. How to draw a square in Pygame. Let's remove that, and also that. And just like that, we have a square now. Then I made it move. Oh, what the f... It is fixed now. Then I've added some gravity so the square just falls to the ground. And after some more magic, this is not just an ordinary square anymore. If you hit spacebar, it will jump. Okay, that's a bit too much. If you hit spacebar, it will jump. I know we have a rough start here, but stick with me, we can get through this. I did a little more experimentation with Pygame and created this monstrosity. I mostly did it because I wanted to see the 144 FPS number on the screen, but I also learned how to handle keyboard and mouse inputs in Pygame. Learn to detect when two objects are touching. I know that really sounds complicated, but we are doing a very basic version here. Instead of handling pixel perfect collisions, we can just extract rectangles and use the colliderect function from Pygame to check if two objects are colliding. And thank God Pygame provides some colliderect function to deal with this. Otherwise, I might have committed not live anymore and you wouldn't be getting this video. Along with this, I've also learned one of the most important concepts in game development, the delta time.
And if this is your final answer, okay, don't lie to me. What's locked in is locked in. And then you get minus 10 points, because this is so wrong. Oh my. Take a deep breath, take a sip of water, because that was the easy part.
With all the basics done, it's time to get back to the game. I removed all that code and started again with the square in the middle of the screen. First thing, I want to work on the movement of the bird. So me being a not very intellectual human being, I decided to use real physics. Yes, those kinematic equations from high school. G is equal to 9.8. It's not 10. Don't tell me it's 10. Now, this is a totally dumb idea because bird physics is not easy and there's not a lot of information out there to research. If I had used some random numbers and checked if the game felt right, I would have finished the game much quicker. To simplify whatever this is, I'm just going to assume that the bird flap only affects it in the y direction for now. I found this video and took his word for the size of the bird. He seems like a smart guy. Then somehow, after doing some physics, I finally made the bird flap again. But it felt way too floaty, and the bird was really hard to control. It would fly off the screen with just 2 taps and fall to the ground faster than my will to live. That was a joke. Anyway, I think this is happening because first, the bird acceleration is really high, and second, the bird acceleration is being applied in an instant. In real world, if a bird flaps, it takes some time to apply that acceleration. So I've added this cooldown for the flap and made the acceleration apply over the period of 0.4 seconds. Now, I think this is physics accurate. Maybe not, but this is really fun to play. Next, I've added the ground and the skybox. And also to make it a bit more playable, I've added these 2 cutoff lines, one at the top and one at the bottom. If the bird crosses the cutoff line on the top, we are going to limit its flap acceleration to 2. And if the bird crosses the cutoff line at the bottom, we are going to increase its flap acceleration to 15. Think of it as the bird just chilling as it flies to the top and losing its mind and flapping its wings as hard as possible when it is closer to the ground. The bird is just scared for its life at that point. This makes it a lot easier to control the bird at the extreme ends. Currently, you can see that the bird starts to fall down as soon as the game starts. I've added some code that tracks the start event, and the bird doesn't fall until I hit the spacebar at least once. After all of that, I'm finally adding the pipes. Instead of making the bird move forward, I made the pipes move backward. Because I've already written the code for the bird movement and it works, I don't want to touch it. And apart from that, it is a lot easier to build it this way. Then I wrote a bit of code to simplify drawing rectangles. Then I modified it again to track score. Then I modified it again to handle collisions. And finally, I've also made an end screen for the game, which is again just rendering some text on rectangles. This screen shows you your current and max scores, and it kind of looks like the face of my disappointed grandfather. To restart the game, you can hit spacebar or click anywhere. The game logic is finally done, but something feels out of place. You are right, it is the art. Why is the toilet paper option here? Making game art is kind of hard. Maybe it is because I'm doing it for the first time, but just trying to replicate an existing piece of art took me like an entire day. I made the bird first, but I had to remake it because it looked a little flat and I wanted it to be. Then I made the pipe, then finally the ground and the background. The art is done and I just dropped everything into the game. I'm super excited to see how this is going to look. Can we have a drum roll, please? This is how the game finally looks. It doesn't exactly match the original, feels a little different when you play it, but you can get used to it pretty quickly. For the bird, we have 3 images that we constantly switch between to make it look like the bird is flapping. On top of that, I'm drawing the bird a little bigger than its actual hitbox. Attaching the ground to the pipes and making the background scroll were the only major visual changes. And now the game is complete, and I can finally rest.
Hey bro. Can you give me a gun?
お前はもう死んでいる。
So here we are. I'm adding guns to Flappy Bird. This is where my life has finally led me. And that's right, we are now in step 3, extending the game mechanics. Now, I'm trying to apply whatever I learned in the last step. So first, I sat down to plan what features I could add to Flappy Bird. I looked at a couple of games that have been my childhood favorites. So we are adding guns. Yes, we are. Then I also want to add an head start and an instant jump. I've also added a secret ending to the game, and now that I told you about it, this is not a secret anymore. For the head start, I just made the pipes move and spawn at a much quicker rate. And all the collisions are disabled, so you can just zoom through for about 5 seconds. After that, I'm just clearing all the pipes and putting the player back at the center of the screen. Let's see if this works. This looks like normal Flappy Bird, but check this out. Haha! For the gun, when you pick up the power up, you move backwards a bit. When a bullet from the gun collides with the pipe, I've just added some gravity to that pipe so the pipe falls off the screen. The gun shoots once every second with infinite range. You should plan your movement carefully. Ouch! Yes, I could totally make the bullet disappear after hitting a single pipe, but I'm not doing that because this seems more fun. Totally not because I'm lazy and have to write some extra code to make that work. For the insta jump power up, I'm just going to instantly teleport you 1 meter higher. We have been triggering power ups at will, but that's not how it works. We need to make a system for collectibles. The spawn logic makes it so that the power ups spawn right between the pipes. Let's see if this works. Looks scary, not even one popped up. Oh, okay, there it is. There is no way, this should not be working on the first try. There has to be a bug somewhere. Okay, coming back to the power-ups, I think they're pretty fun. I made the spawns frequent enough so that they're enjoyable. I actually want you to use them as much as possible. The only restrictions that I've put are you cannot collect the power-ups when you're in the head start mode, because that would just break the game. The bird is already too OP, it needs to be nerfed. Now all that is left is to add these sprites that I made and some cool animations to the power-ups, and also a good font that matches the aesthetic. Now the animations are not really great, but I can show you how each power-up animation works because I think I learned something that I want to share. For the head start, there is just a flame sprite that grows bigger and becomes small again. I'm doing this using the inbuilt love function that Pygame provides, and this nice function that is parabolic and returns a number between 0 and 1. It's kind of like a bit. For the gun, I don't know man, I think this looks way too funny. The gun just stays there. I mean, there is no recoil animation or anything of that sort. I'm not even adding a sprite for the bullet yet, so maybe one of you guys can add an asset and raise a PR. When the power up is triggered, I'm using the same love function again, but this time I'm using a different function that calculates time, which again it's slurping between these two equations to get that smooth step effect. Why am I even struggling to draw this? I'm just going to make a plot. Seems like I've lerped too much today, so for the feather power up I'm going to keep it simple. The feather just falls to the ground. There's nothing magical about it. Now that pretty much concludes the game. And while the gameplay footage is playing, I'll just go over some things that I did after I finished coding the game. First, I've added some code for the secret ending, but I don't want to show it in the video. If you want to figure it out, look through the code and see if you can figure out what the trigger for the secret ending is. If you want to play the game, I provided a link in the description to download the exe, which is also on the GitHub releases page. And for the secret ending, you might want to clone the repo. And if you do clone the repo, everything you need to get set up is already in the readme of the repo. As I said, poetry was worth it. Or was it? Download it, play it, and maybe try to break it. And if it does break, please create a GitHub issue. I was planning on making a mobile port and also adding some sound effects, but this video is already getting way too long and my interest for this project has gone down. But until I make something again, maybe you can check out this other video where I built my first web app after getting rejected by Google. If you're wondering, yes, you're going to watch me struggle a lot. See you there.